Hello, everyone. Welcome back to week 3. This is topic 1. It's interactive storytelling. So you're going to be focusing on making sure you've planned in movement or have books that have movement planned in so that your audience doesn't zone out, or that you'll have unplanned movement if you don't plan for the movement. Also, your first storytellings are in. They look good. Good job, everybody. I would recommend as you work on your cinematography skills, yeah, I know, you're working with a camera on your computer or your cell phone. Just make sure everything is charged. Think about not having bright lights behind you, and think about controlling for sound as much as possible. I realize as I record these things in my household, it can sometimes be echoey. I have been sitting on a squeaky chair for one of these lessons, and my dog barks sometimes. So I get the challenges you have, don't worry, but control for as much as you can. That said, our next stories are due Tuesday. I hope you can see this before you do that. If you're thinking about doing interactive storytelling for your next one, some of you have gone ahead. That's great. If you're feeling confident, go for it. But I probably won't grade anything ahead of time unless I get really on top of things, which is unlikely. But I'm trying to keep up with you guys. On that note, your second blog should be graded by Monday evening at the latest, and probably before then, just so, and I will always try to get your things graded before the next thing comes in so that we are on the same page and you know how you're doing. All right, so thinking about interactive storytelling, you want to plan for action. I've got a list of books in here that should help you. Also, your readings offered a lot of titles that should help you plan for interaction with your listeners. But it's great to access those kinesthetic learners. That's just good teaching. It's a good planning to get the kids up and moving. And engage that whole learner, not just the ears, not just the eyes with what you're presenting, but with having their bodies involved in what goes on. That's a great way of engaging learning and making kids excited about stories and listening. So on to our next slide. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of strategies to involve your listeners. As the Pyrrhic article said, I'm not quoting exactly, but this is close. You don't want a captive audience. We want a captivated audience. And as I looked through a bunch of the books recommended on multiple websites and in our readings, I just thought, oh, these are so much fun. There's really some fun stuff out there. So here we go. Some things to think about when you're doing interactive storytelling. You want to include movement. You want to find some books that promote interaction or response or touch, or have kids come up to the front and pull things or poke things. Rhythm and song are great, as Jordan demonstrated in Ride Along 3. You want books that have guessing, predicting, or questioning, or that allow you to do questioning. And acting out the action. Yes, I realize that's more movement. There's a lot of movement. Most of these things involve movement. I didn't even realize they had yoga books for toddlers. What a great idea. I need to do more yoga myself. Anyway, there's lots of good stuff out there. So we'll look at these in more depth as we go on. Here we go. Okay, so things with movement. Your text can provide the guidance as far as the movement, where the listeners follow directions. So in pizza, which is hard to say, there are directions for how to make a pizza with your child. And so that would be a neat one to do in a toddler story time, where it says, oh, well, you have to knead the dough. And so if the parents follow the directions with the child who's at toddler story time, that's a fun way to involve kids and parents in it. And it creates the sort of physical interaction that's great between parents and kids, and you're showing parents how to engage with their children. I think that's a nifty book. And then, of course, other things that are song-based, like Jordan's songs with the chewing gum. I loved that one. Or the airplane song that Jordan did. Another option is I Got the Rhythm, where you are clapping, stomping along with the book, and it spells it out for you so that as the storyteller, you don't have to think as much. The book is doing more of the work. I think that's a great idea. You want to think about finding books that have interaction built in. This was mentioned in one of our articles this week called Press Here, where you follow directions in the book and then it changes as you follow the directions. It's pretty cool. There are 3 books in this series, Press Here, Mix It Up, and Let's Play. They are all interactive books by the same author. They're highly recommended. Any book that has die cuts or flaps or pullouts or pop-ups or things where you're required to touch it. Another book was mentioned in one of these things, and the title escapes me, where you have to use a hairdryer. I don't know that you'd want to do that in story time, but with your own kids you might. But you have to, it's called something about secrets, where you use the hairdryer and you blow it on the page and then the secrets get revealed. I just think that would really engage kids, though a hairdryer would be noisy. That might be something that would really pique their interest. There are so many books where you can use the refrain or a chant or a song to involve your audience. So if you have a book that has a repeating refrain, you can write it down or have the kids memorize it beforehand to make the storytelling more interactive. So I've given the example of the Gunny Wolf. I actually have used that multiple times. And if you haven't read it, the little girl is told not to go in the forest, and of course she does. She goes picking flowers, and then of course the Gunny Wolf chases her. So there are multiple opportunities with that book, because the girl sings as she picks the flowers, and she goes kumquat kiwa and sings as she picks the flowers. So you could teach the kids to say that short phrase. Or the Gunny Wolf makes a noise as he chases her, and he says hunkercha, hunkercha, hunkercha. So you could have the kids say that. Another one of my favorites, and I've been digging around in my house looking for books as I've been prepping for this class, and then my kids are like, oh, I love that book. So I pulled out The Ballad of the Pirate Queens by Jane Yolen, and I don't know if any of you have read that, but there's a gorgeous refrain, and it's a ballad, obviously, it's rhyming. So it has the rhyming, the chanting, and it has a refrain. So you could have the refrain written up on a board, and you could have the parents recite it, or if you're doing that with older children, I think actually the Ballad of Pirate Queens would probably be not appropriate for toddler time, as it talks about them being pregnant and not being hung on the gallows. That would probably be for 8 9s, 7 8s, a little older. Anyway, that has a beautiful refrain that you could have the kids say with you as you read aloud. Another technique to engage your listeners is questioning. You want to pick out books that make the audience predict or guess what's going to happen next. It can really help build anticipation. One of our articles suggests Edward the Emu as a great book to use for questioning, because Edward wants to be other animals and he tries to pretend to be other animals. And so as you're reading the book, you could say, what animal do you think Edward's going to be next? There's a sequel to that called Edwina the Emu, where Edwina has 10 babies on the way. She's laid 10 eggs, and she and Edward are trying to figure out how to support their family. Edwina offers to go get a job, and so part of the humor of the book is that she keeps trying to do ridiculous jobs. She goes to try to be a ballerina, and then as the book progresses, you can say, what do you think she's going to do next? I find it highly unlikely that they will guess chimney sweep, but that's one of the jobs she tries to do, and that's part of the fun of the book, and so it can engage your listeners. Another book that is excellent for engaging listeners is Open Very Carefully, A Book with a Bite. It is a fractured fairy tale. It works with the ugly duckling, and then a crocodile shows up, or maybe it's an alligator. I can't tell the difference. I can't remember either. Anyway, a large toothy reptile shows up to invade the book, and then you could ask the kids what they think the characters should do to get rid of the alligator or to solve the problem so that the story can resolve itself happily. So those are just a couple of options you could think about. I was thinking about Jordan's Storytime, which it's just absolutely lovely, but as a former English teacher, I was looking for links between the books, and I thought, if Jordan had asked about size, how big is the ball in the red ball book? And then her second book was all about synonyms for size, or synonyms, descriptive synonyms. And then in her final book, she had the wide-mouthed frog, and she could ask, what were some of the words from the second book that would describe how big this wide-mouthed frog really is, or how big his wide mouth is. And then you could talk about, would the red ball from the first book fit in the mouth of the wide-mouthed frog or not? How big is it? So that's just one way you could use questions along the way. How big is that red ball? What words describe big? How wide is the wide-mouthed frog's mouth? That might have been a tie-in, but I'm also thinking higher level thinking for high school English. So I don't know how well that would fly, but that's one way to incorporate questions across a series of books too. All right, let's get on to the really fun stuff. I'm actually a kinesthetic learner or a textual learner, but if you're going to read stories to me, I'm definitely going to want to move even as an adult. So there are so many good books for this, but I thought this was a really interesting selection. This is called Flora and the Flamingo, and it is a wordless book. And as our textbook has stated, there's an early connection between the picture and the spoken word and the picture and symbology for kids. So wordless books are awesome too. And then in this wordless book, even though you're not even reading it, you can describe what's happening in the picture, and then your audience can mimic the flamingo also. Or you can have a book with actions built in, and the actions can be purposeful by the author. So in Can You Make a Scary Face? It actually gives specific directions to the listeners, which they are supposed to follow. And apparently this works very well. I've never used this one, but it's supposed to be delightful in a story time. And then you can have actions that your listeners mimic or perform or act out as the book continues. I actually remember this from when I was a child. I think this is an old one, or maybe from when my kids were small. Anyway, I remember this from a long time ago. We're going on a bear hunt is the classic example here, where you tiptoe and you climb and all that good stuff. And there are many other examples of books like this. If you just did a quick Google search of interactive storybooks, you would find some if you're struggling with this particular assignment. There's lots. There's good stuff. All right, just some reminders. Things in this class are due on Tuesdays and Fridays. I did that on purpose so that you wouldn't have to do work on the weekends, theoretically. And also because I'm taking a class where everything is due on the weekend and I hate it. So hopefully you're keeping track of the dates. There's something always due on Tuesday and Friday. Here we are in week 3 and we're almost halfway there. So you're doing great. I also understand most of your reluctance. Several people have mentioned they don't like being on camera. Me neither. Which is why most of the time I'm in a tiny little square in the corner of the screen because I don't want to be full screen, because I turn the full screen on and I think, oh God, I need some lipstick. And even that doesn't help. Anyway, keep your chins up. You're doing great. And I'm looking forward to your next round of stories. And I also want to let you know that your blogs should be graded by Monday evening at the very latest. Did I already say to this in the recording? I have recorded this like 8 times because I kept laughing. So hopefully it's okay this time. And if I've repeated myself, I apologize. And I will have our next class recording up probably by 5 tomorrow. All right, so have a good week. Keep storytelling, keep reading, and take care. Bye.